Welcome to Haverchat, a leadership podcast where we explore the principles, the stories, and the people that shape great leadership. Hello, everyone. I'm Todd Wiesenberg, the Chief Culture Officer here at Haverchat Group. And today we're going to have a meaningful conversation about teamwork, preparation, and leadership during one of the more stressful time periods within the property management world, and that is the student housing turn season. For those of you who are unfamiliar with what the student housing turn season looks like, it's basically an intense time period where our teams work very diligently to move a bunch of people out and move a bunch of people in. To put it very bluntly, they're completing inspections, they're doing cleanings, there's a lot of maintenance and repair, and it's really getting everybody ready to have a great experience with Haverchat properties. So if planning season is one of those stressful time periods in the farming world, the turn season is definitely one of those defining pressure points within the property management world. It requires planning, it requires communication, and it requires a whole lot of teamwork. So joining us today are two of our leaders within the student housing portfolio. We have Vinny Linhart, our regional manager, and Spencer Nelson, our area manager. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us here today.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Todd. Good to be here.
All right. So Vinny, Spencer, before we dive in, I'd like to give each of you a chance to introduce yourselves using your own words. Tell us about your journey to Haverchat, what it is that your current role entails, how long you've been with the organization. Vinny, let's go ahead and start with you.
My name is Vinny Linhart. I'm our student regional manager here at Haverchat Properties. I've been with the company about 10 years now, and I actually connected through Haverchat Properties through a temp agency. I started as a leasing consultant in our Ames portfolio, and have been very blessed to have good people around me and have moved to regional property manager now. I've been with my wife, Huli, for 12 years now, and we together parent two children, Santino and Enzo.
Yeah, my name's Spencer Nelson. Todd, appreciate you inviting us on here. Been with Haverchat Properties for a total of 11 years. I was here for 3 years and then took a sabbatical for 3 years.
Yeah, you're one of those boomerang employees,
Yes,
right?
Yes, the prodigal son.
The prodigal son has returned.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I 3 years after being gone, Todd, actually, it was you that had reached out about an opportunity to come back. And so I've been back now for 8 years, and so a total of 11 years. And I started in college as a part-time leasing consultant. I remember going into the office at Westtown paying rent, and the assistant manager at the time had asked if I was looking for a job, which I was. And so that's how it all started. Kind of crazy to think about. But yeah, I have my wife, Lindsay. We've been married for 11 years now, and we have 4 kids as well. So,
all right. So gentlemen, you bring a wealth of experience, years with the organization, a lot of time with the student housing portfolio. What have been some changes that you've seen over the years since your time here?
Yeah, and if we're talking specifically student market, so we've just seen, especially in Ames, just a tremendous amount of growth, new development in student housing. Competition just continues to increase, more cutthroat. Usually by the end of the leasing term, someone's left at that 80% mark, 80% occupancy. So we've seen a lot of that. I know Spencer's got some to add to that as well.
Yeah, I think that student housing is really trended to be very heavily amenitized. And so probably 20 years ago, you would think of college housing as the lowest of lows, and it's just you're there to sleep, and it's not going to be very nice. And there's definitely this new trend where students want luxury living. They want the pools, the saunas, the hot tubs. They want their amenities, and so that's probably a big shift that we've seen. Also during COVID, we saw a unique shift where there was. It used to be that 4 and 3 bedrooms were very hot, and people wanted roommates. And then during COVID, and then probably a couple of years after, probably 2020 to 2022, we saw studios and 1 bedrooms being really hot. And so that was kind of unique where people didn't want roommates. And now we've kind of seen the shift back where people want roommates again. Okay. And so those 3 and 4 bedrooms have kind of turned back to where they used to be in student living.
Something that's very true in real estate, you see cycles, and being able to work your way through it, manage it, is something that's always there. So we definitely have seen that in our markets. So before we jump into the topic, here's a question I'd like to ask every one of our guests. And Spencer, we're going to start with you on this one. How would you define leadership? What does being a leader look like or mean to you?
Yeah, I think of leadership. I think it's seeing your team's success. You being the influence of that. And so if your team is successful and you influence that, I would view that as leadership. I think too, it's gaining their trust. It's not necessarily being playing the boss card all the time, although you need to at times, but it's they want to follow you. I think a good leader is able to help remove barriers and so that they can grow in ways that better themselves. But that you can allow them to grow without micromanaging them.
Okay.
Yeah, leadership to me is, a willingness to go first. It's not pushing, it's not pulling. It's also a willingness to accept responsibility for the outcomes, whether good or bad. Celebrate with the team, but also take accountability if your team fails. Certainly, that's on you to bear. So that's how I define leadership.
Vinny, I had to chuckle just a little bit there because, I agree with that statement. Leaders need to be that pace setters, the one that goes first. But knowing something about you, there's also, from the book, leaders eat last. Whenever we're at a company event and there's, a food line that we're going through, you're usually one of the last ones to go through, making sure everybody else's needs are being met. So
very true.
Yes, kind of both ends of the spectrum sometimes as a leader.
And that's kind of the side of the servant leader, right? Where you're serving your team, serving your people, serving your community around you.
I've often seen a competition between you two of who can go last.
There has been that.
So then you start wondering, is it a selfish motive?
Yeah, exactly.
They got to look like they're the best.
That's funny. All right. So the title for our episode today is Preparing for Success. And I want to start with the season that you guys are currently in right now, and that's preparing for the turnover. And again, for those outside of the student housing market, turn season may seem easy or may even be underestimated. So for those people from the outside looking in, they may say, students move out and they move in, but there's so much more happening behind the scenes. So what exactly is turn season, Vinny, and why is it such a big deal in student housing?
Yeah, so turn season is a mass exodus of our residents, right? It's a major move out. Probably 50% of our residents are typically moving out. So 3,000 to 4,000 people are going to be leaving their apartment. And whether it's a day, maybe 8 hours, maybe it's a week or two, they're going to be moving back in. New residents are coming back in for that first time experience. So that's what the turn season is. And you're preparing all year for something like this as soon as you start pre-leasing. But yeah, it's just a big move of a bunch of people leaving the property and a bunch more people coming back in for the first time.
Mm-hmm. I think sometimes you've termed it as controlled chaos.
Controlled chaos.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So Spencer, what do you think people? What don't people understand about the pressure and the pace and all the planning that goes into preparing for the move out and the move in?
Yeah, I think I'm a perfectionist. Many of our team members are perfectionists, and so the pressure of you want that first impression to be really good for the new tenant moving in, but you're doing it in a bulk fashion. And so, like Vinny said, we're moving 3,000 people out. And so it's so hard to be perfect. And you're not going to be perfect. And so just that pressure of doing the best you can, and then also understanding that you're going to have to adapt to where we fell short. The employees are working from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. for quite a few days. There's a lot of pressure of making sure vendors are lined up well in advance, but also making sure that they're staying on top of it, because we're bringing in outside vendors that are not our employees. And so having to manage them, making sure that they are staying on track. There's a lot of things I didn't mention, but yeah, there's a lot of pressure to it.
Well, one thing you didn't mention, yes, we're bringing in outside vendors. Obviously, we have our core employees, but we bring in a lot of seasonal short-term help. And so there's the training of them, and then Yeah. Just talk about bringing in short-term help.
Yeah. So you might, one manager might have an additional 20 employees that now they're managing for a week. And so just the stress of your phone is ringing nonstop because you're, as the manager, you're now the boss of, again, 20 new employees. And so just having to manage that, and because they're so temporary, some of them maybe just started a day ago, like they don't really have any training. And so you're kind of learning on the go, teaching them what to do, obviously entrusting more seasoned employees to lead them as well. But yeah, there's a lot that goes in that with managing a lot of new employees. So yeah.
On another side to that too, just the vendors that you bring in. You might have 200 or 300 people on your properties that you don't know, and we do a really good job of building solid relationships with our vendors. So usually we know what to expect from them, but sometimes you have to use a new vendor, and that can be really challenging for a site team.
Yeah, obviously. I used to sit in your guys' chairs when it comes to the student turn, and just as you guys are talking there, trust is so important when you're talking about vendors, or trust with your current team members, because as you grow and you bring in these short term, or you're trying a new vendor, or the vendor that you have, there's just a lot of trust that you have to put into these people, and so yeah, very, very important. What are the biggest priorities right now for your teams as they prepare over these next few weeks?
Yeah, a couple of things come to mind for me. Communication is huge for the site teams. So whether it's internal, from leasing to maintenance, whether it's to vendors, making sure our lists are correct. It's also to the residents, the ones leaving us and the ones that are coming in. So just clear, concise communication. But they're also still, many of them are focusing on pre-leasing. So they've got to manage that as well while they prepare for the big move out. So.
Yeah, I would echo the communication. And we just talked about too, but just the extra help that goes with it. They're preparing to bring in the short-term staff. And so, I think that's probably their biggest priority, and just making sure that they have, people change their mind and they might renew a week prior to move out. And so there's a lot of changing pieces. And when those pieces change, you have to communicate to a lot of people, because you've already told the cleaning vendor that this person's moving out. You've already told the painting vendor that they're replacing flooring, whatever it be. So when one person changes their mind at this time frame, it's just a trickle effect that you have to be on top of your communication with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to use typical day in air quotes here, but what would a typical day in turn season look like for those, whether it be a maintenance person or somebody, one of your office team members? What's a typical day look like, Spencer?
I think you referenced it earlier, but controlled chaos. You just have to be adaptable. So, and have that attitude that is willing to adapt. But yeah, you're thinking in a lens of almost, what am I missing? What could go wrong? Similar to like when you go on vacation, you're maybe on the road and you're like, what did I forget to pack? And so that turn can seem similar to that okay, I think I'm fully prepared, but there's got to be something I'm missing. And so you're just trying to think of worst case scenario. What else did we not think about? Just because you can't be perfect. And so, yeah.
Yeah, and I can elaborate a little bit. A typical day, like a move-out day, for instance, you're starting early, getting to the office at 5:30 or 6, getting ready for the inspectors to come in. You're sending them out as early as we can, 7 a.m., 7:30, to start inspecting units. And you're helping people kind of get out and solve some problems so they can move out. Some people are holding over, still sleeping, forgot it was move-out day, which is very normal. So we work around that. And then, just getting things going, getting vendors in as soon as we possibly can so we can start that process, because some of our sites have move in the same day that people moved out. And so we're trying to get those units ready for them as well. And then we'll get lines of people on move-in day. Sometimes we have hundreds of people, and just trying to move the line as quick as possible and make sure that first impression is great for them.
And it always, seems like that move-in day is usually like the hottest day of the summer. Always. And so,
or it's raining.
Yeah.
There's never a high of 75 and sunny with a light breeze on move-in day. So obviously you have elements that you're dealing with, and I know we don't have this in the script, but I think about 2020, Cedar Rapids. That was not a typical day. And again, I know we didn't prep for this, but it's such a kind of a core memory. Vinny, you want to talk about what that day looked like for our Cedar Rapids team and how they rose to the occasion?
Yeah, and so I wasn't involved very much with Cedar Rapids, but I remember communicating with Dave Hyman, our president, and just they had roofs that were missing from their communities, many of their communities that people were trying to move into. So it just a day or a couple days before move-in. So it was just constant communication to residents coming in. Hey, if you have a place to stay, we need you to just hold off. We're trying to get a roof on your building. We're trying to get everything else that goes in line, power back to buildings. We had to get generators from all over, scavenge for generators. So this was not only a COVID mix, but you also derecho is what you're referring to.
I did a poor job of explaining what 2020. We had the derecho took place right before the move in there.
Absolutely. So, it was chaos. It was complete chaos, and teams got generators so we could power our laptops and our phones and be able to call people, and just work through it day by day.
And there were still people who wanted to move in because they were excited about this. This is my new home, and they're
to a unit with no power.
Yeah,
maybe not a roof.
Not a roof,
but they were there, So, but yeah, I mean that's just one of those extreme examples of that. Obviously, was not a typical day, but to something you said earlier, both of you guys have mentioned this attitude of being adaptable. I think that was adaptability at its peak there with the team members doing all they can. And we know what our purpose and passion is. That's to create communities where people love to live. So even in an adverse situation like that, we were doing our darndest, if you will. What are some things that have to go right for turn season to be successful? So think about your 30 days past, this mass move out, mass move in. What are some things that have to go right in order for it to be deemed successful?
Yeah, one of the first things that I think of would be inspections. So our inspectors are so important to us. They have to tell us what the condition of that unit is when somebody moves out. And that can definitely make or break a turnover process.
Yeah, yep, without a doubt. And, just the first impression of when they move into that unit, cleaning is number one. If there's a mark on the wall that needs to be repainted, okay, some people, may say something about it, but without a doubt, cleaning, that smell, having the air conditioning on, as you reference, it's going to be probably 90 degrees. And so, just having the AC ready, it feels cool to walk in. And then I think just from the teams too, it's just that attitudes. It's our most stressful week. And so it's easy to let our attitudes affect how we come off. But we have to remember that this is maybe their most exciting week because they're moving into their new apartment. And so we just have to fix our face in a sense and fix our attitudes, make sure that we are giving that impression that we're welcoming them in.
And absolutely, I think most of our team members get that. They understand that. And that's what makes, I think, Haverchat Properties so special because, like you said, they understand that for this resident, this is their first, and they're excited. And so we got to show up for them. And a lot of our team members do a great job with that, even in the midst of all that stress. So, before the pressure begins, one of the things I want listeners to really understand is that in order, again, to have a successful turn season, it just doesn't happen by accident. You guys are very intentional and purposeful. And that success people see during move-in is usually the result of work that has started weeks, if not months prior. So when does the actual preparation for turn season begin, Spencer?
Yeah, I joke about this, but it's almost the next day.
Okay.
And I say that because we will keep track of what went right, what went wrong. And for the next year, what could we do better?
Right.
But the bulk of it is probably about 6 months out of your planning on flooring replacements, painting, trying to get an idea of condition of units. But even on top of the turn process, once students move in August, we're already starting leasing the next month. So 11 months in advance, we're handing out renewals. And so you're already planning for the move in, move out process 11 months in advance.
Right.
Yeah.
Vinny, what are some of the key planning rhythms or systems your teams really rely on before the turn starts?
Yeah, so a simple example would be what we call a turn grid. Turn grid, if you don't know, is let's call it an Excel spreadsheet or a giant Excel spreadsheet with every unit that's planning to move out. And then you put check marks as things get completed. So has it been inspected? Has the flooring been replaced? Has it been cleaned? Everything that needs done. And so that grid really keeps us on track. And then there's a final walkthrough, right? That's so important for our teams. Usually that's done by the property manager. Not always, but a final walk to say, hey, yes, I've signed off on this unit. This unit is ready to go and ready for someone to move into.
Spencer, you mentioned just a little bit ago about kind of the mental attitude that it takes because it is such an intense time period. So how do you prepare your on-site teams for that mental side of the turn season?
Yeah, I think mentally it just comes back to preparation. It's just, if we feel prepared mentally, you're going to have a peace. Mm-hmm. And so it's, Vinny and I have done this now a lot of years. And so, and a lot of our managers have been around for a lot of years. And so it's, they feel a lot better than they did 5 years ago. Turnover is chaotic. And, but if you can mentally prepare them and they feel like they've checked every box, again, like I said earlier, something's going to go wrong. So knowing that something's going to go wrong, we'll adapt to that. But if we can minimize our mistakes, we're going to feel pretty good about preparation for turn.
And I know you'll probably give some shout outs to some of your team members here in a little bit, but as you're talking about how important, the preparation, how that builds confidence, and then that just kind of oozes out to the rest of the team. Obviously it starts with you guys. You've had experience. You kind of, to use that saying, you've seen a thing or two, so you kind of know how to respond to those things. But you have a lot of team members, from Tabitha to Matt to Brooke, who have been with us for quite a while. And so they know what they're doing. And I'm sure that breeds a lot of confidence to the rest of the team. And even the maintenance guys, Thad, who's getting ready to celebrate 25 years with Haverchat. Maintenance team members too. There's a lot of experience there.
Yeah, we were just on Tuesday, we were on an asset call with Tabitha, and I asked her how she was feeling about turn, and she made it seem like it's no big deal. Like, she's done it now.
What's that?
10 years or whatever. And so, that was cool to hear.
Yeah. Okay. So what you've talked about communication a lot, and you mentioned it being so key. What is it specifically about communication that plays such an important role before and during?
Well, if the communication is incorrect, it messes up everything. It's kind of like the waterfall effect or trickle down effect Spencer talked about before, or domino effect. There's so many pieces that have to change with your communication. So if somebody renews late, we have to communicate with maybe 12 different communication points to be able to make sure no one's going in their unit. But it's just that domino effect. It has to be good, clean, concise communication to all parties involved, because there's so many moving parts and there's so many individuals that are working the turn process.
Spencer, where have you seen preparation make the biggest difference or impact from a chaotic turn to one that is successful?
Yeah, and Vinny could vouch for this as well. Just him and I personally, we've seen so much growth over the turns of what has gone wrong, what can we fix, and I think what we've changed a lot is just our attention to detail of walking every unit multiple times after the painting, after the cleaning, after flooring replacement, and to a point where so we offer as is units, which means they can move in the same day that people are moving out. And so it can be very stressful, because even though they sign for it as is, people often can forget that it's not been turned. We haven't cleaned it, we haven't painted it, because we just moved someone out 5 hours ago. And so one thing that we've changed over the years is we've walked every unit that we've assigned those as is to make sure these aren't terrible units, because we try to minimize the much problem as possible. Where in the past it was like, hey, we're going to assign units, you're taking it as is. And which is true, they signed it for as is, but this allowed us to minimize the issues. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's probably one of the biggest things. And then I would say just also the teams just having the mindset of what can go wrong, knowing something's going to go wrong, and that we'll get through it. But yeah.
Yeah, and having options for when things go wrong, whether we have units that are vacant that we can put people in anywhere in any of our portfolios, or our Airbnb units that we have that we prep and we keep open for this purpose. So it's nice to give them options it's nice to have options when stuff hits the fan.
Yes, it is. I love it. All right. So what I'm hearing from you gentlemen is how important, this principle of being prepared is, and how critical it is, especially so when that pressure does hit, you're ready. You know what options are, and the steadier we can be when that time does arrive, when the chaos does hit. I want to spend a few minutes helping people understand what makes student housing unique. I mean, we talked about this compressed time with the mass move out and mass move in, but student housing is not simply, conventional multifamily. It's not just, an age group difference thing. There's different expectations. You talked about amenities already here a little bit, Spencer, but what are some of the different rhythms or expectations or timeliness as it pertains to student housing? Vinny, let's start with you. So managing the student housing portfolio, what makes it so unique?
Yeah, and if we're comparing it to a market rate or conventional asset, so there's several things, but one of the things is you're not just leasing to one person. Typically with a lease, you're going to have a guarantor. So that's typically a parent or family member. Mm-hmm. And usually the communication has to go out to both. So you may give a tour. It's going to be to the potential leaser, and it's also going to be to the guarantor. They're going to be there and they're going to be involved. Like Spencer mentioned earlier, a lot of times it's their first time moving away from home. And so parents want a clean, safe environment for them. So yeah, you're dealing with the guarantor and the person that's leasing all the way through the process. So that's one of them. Even on move-in day, some of our sites will see moms, dads, aunts, uncles, everybody comes to help on move-in day, which is fun. So the other piece of that is, a student property, you're starting leasing, like Spencer said, in October, and you're leasing up all year to get to a big point. And you've mentioned it before. It's like a cruise ship, or some people would say it's like an airplane, right? We're filling seats, different prices, different things going on all year long. And once that cruise ship leaves port, or once that plane takes off, it's done. It's very challenging to get more occupancy once the move-in dates happen. So with conventional, you're getting multiple touch points throughout each month where you're having people move in, move out. If you have a bad month, you can make some changes and offset that. We don't have that luxury once move-in happens. So
right. Well said. From the student perspective, I mean, you talked about amenities already, Spencer, but what are some of the things that make the student resident experience unique?
I think it's, for some of them, it's their first apartment. Most of them, it's their first apartment. Mm-hmm. And so, and maybe they're incoming freshmen. And so it's their first experience of independence away from their family. And also just navigating a new city and navigating college, and just there's a lot of changes going on. And so I think just us understanding, being able to put ourselves in their shoes and remember what it was like going through college and all the changes you had to go through, and mm-hmm. Just making sure that we can make them feel welcome, comfortable, to be able to do life and not have this be a big stressor.
You mentioned already, the fact that there's usually a parent or a family member involved in the dynamics of student housing, whether it be doing the move-in or the lease signing process, the yep. move-in. Where you sometimes see, that person have a little bit more of I saw you dynamic that differentiates it from that market rate.
Yeah, at every point of the leasing cycle, whether yeah. it's collections balance or whether it's a renewal notice that needs communicated. Sometimes parents take the lead and they're our main point of contact, which is perfectly fine. Mm-hmm. And the resident kind of just stays back and they just live and do what they do. Mm-hmm. And we deal with mom and dad. Mm-hmm. But at every point, you're really dealing with the guarantor and the person mm-hmm. living in the unit.
Yeah, I often, say that it's almost, and not in a negative light, but it's almost like we have double the amount of residents, because you have, let's say you have a complex of it's 500 units, and so you have X amount of residents, but then you're doubling that because you're you're also communicating with parents or aunts, uncles, like Vinny has said. So it's, parents want what's best for their kid. And so we just have to have that understanding of it comes with the territory and just, again, communicate with more than just the resident. So
as you think about, communicating to other team members in our organization, what do you wish more people understood about the complexity of student housing that maybe they just don't understand? Vinny, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think most people, we started in student housing, so it's core to us. So I really think most of our organization understands the complexity of student housing, and they do a really good job. Accounting, marketing, they cater to us in student housing. So I don't have anything for them that they need to understand. Okay. Anything more to add?
You think our team gets it?
I think they get it.
How about people outside of our team, Spencer? What would you want to share with them? I mean, we've talked a lot about complexity. Any other complexities you would add to it?
Yeah, I think, you're just in student housing, you're planning so far in the future, but yet you need to be excellent in the current. And so it's hard to be your best now while also putting effort towards 10, 11 months from now, because now you're leasing or you're planning for a budget for that's this far out that we don't even have rental income set for. And so, and then also just, planning for a turn 6 months, 7 months in advance. And there's a lot. So I think that's the biggest complexity is you're always looking towards the future, but you still have to be your best in the now.
In the present, yeah. Vinny, appreciate you bringing up that our roots are here in Ames. This is where we were founded and started, and so student housing is near and dear to us. It's important, and it's a very important part of our story. But we've also have now student communities in Iowa City area and in Iowa City, serving other major four-year universities. So let's start with Ames for a minute, Vinny. What makes Ames so special for Havercamp? What does our presence here? Why is it so meaningful?
Yeah, I think for one, we have a lot of bed spaces here in Ames. Okay. A big part of the market is managed and or owned by Havercamp Properties. And I think the second part of that is our reputation here. We have a long-standing 25-plus year reputation in Ames, Iowa, and that's something we want to uphold every day, every turn season, every move-in process. So that's a lot of pressure, but it's important for us to maintain a healthy reputation in this market.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Because I know you have a little bit more familiarity with this, what separates, or what are maybe some difference between the Ames market and the Iowa City market?
Yeah, I would say the biggest difference this year is Iowa City is aggressive. It's hot as a market. Ames probably feels similar to last year or years prior, but Iowa City, I would say, is 3-4 weeks ahead in pre-leasing. And there's a lot of new product on the market. So it's very cutthroat. Yeah.
So Spencer, what makes student housing market unique here in Ames from your perspective?
Yeah, I think that in some ways the university runs the town in a sense of the leasing cycle. And so what's kind of unique is we actually do have a lot of multifamily housing here in Ames, but we consider it student because it's ran on the student cycle of August to July. And so, I think that's kind of unique to Ames a little bit in that, there certainly is some outsiders that do run outside of the August to July lease terms. But it's for the most part, it's pretty common that you're going to run August to July and you might consider it student property when really we have a lot of families and So there's a wide variety of people living with us. And so I think that's probably one thing that's unique is you run it on the student cycle, but it doesn't mean you're a student.
Right. Yeah. You're absolutely right. We do have families that live in one of our communities here. And if they're coming in from the outside, there comes a certain amount of educating them because what do you mean I can't start my lease, here, or I can't end it here? It's like, no, this is kind of the way the town is run. And so you have to educate them on that.
Yep, absolutely.
Staying with you here, Spencer, how do the student expectations in Ames shape how our teams prepare, not only just for turn season, but just to give our residents a good experience?
Yeah, I referenced this earlier, but I think that the incoming students' perspective has changed a lot in what they expect in housing. And so they're really expecting more luxury living. They're expecting their apartment to look brand new. And that can get harder and harder with, properties that we've had for a while. And so I think just reminding our team that the expectations are really, really high. And just because these are college students doesn't mean we can lower our expectations. And whether we should have or not, previously, but it's just they definitely are on the pickier side, and not in a bad way. It's just they want it to look nice and new, which I don't blame them. But so just raising our expectations of knowing what they want is probably reminding our team of that. Yeah.
Very, very important there. Going back to Iowa City, Vinny, made history this year, didn't we?
We did.
What was that history? Let you give the shout out there.
Yeah, so the Banks, congratulations to that team. They hit 100% about a month before move-in. It's also the first time ever that property's pre-leased to 100%.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
So you mentioned, the Iowa City market being really hot. But how else is it different? Is it much different, from Iowa State to Iowa besides, Hawkeyes versus Cyclones? What are some other differences?
Yeah, the colors they bleed are certainly different, no doubt about that. No, not really. I mean, it's the university towns, big university towns, and there really isn't. To me, it's very similar. It's students, and you're dealing with students of all levels. You're dealing with guarantors, like Spencer was saying. They're looking for luxury, especially out there in that market. We have a very nice property at the Banks, and it's definitely luxury student housing. So I think they're also looking for lifestyle, and they're looking to connect again. Spencer made the reference from the by the bed to the full units, and they're looking for connection with each other again, intimate connection, maybe smaller resident events, things like that. So, but very similar to the Ames market.
All right, want to shift our conversation from the 4-year schools to the 2-year schools, because I think something that makes Haverchat Properties special or unique is not only are we serving the 4-year university student, but we have a very large presence at Kirkwood Community College, as well as Des Moines Area Community College in Ankeny, so we serve a lot of students in the state of Iowa. In fact, we may be one of the largest, if not the largest one in the state. I think we were recognized in the Student Housing Magazine as being number 30, I think, on the list for the number of beds managed throughout the United States. So we're definitely one of the top ones in our area. So what makes the community college student housing demographic different from our 4-year university? And Vinny, let's start with you there.
Yeah, I would say looking at the market, just the volatility that you get in a community college. The property is so reliant on the college and enrollment and how well it does. So there's a ton of volatility. 1 year you might have 30, 40% renewals there. They're going to be there committed probably 2 years, maybe less, if they're going to transfer. The next year you might have 15% renewal. So you have to plan and be prepared for that. But also just the specifics to the residents. The 4-year institutions, you typically see people make decisions quicker. They know they're going to Iowa State. They know they're going to the University of Iowa, and they're ready to make a decision. But in the community college, that resident is just coming out of high school. They have so many options in front of them. Do I go to this community college, or do I go to DMAC or Kirkwood, or am I going to go to a 4-year school? And so a lot of times that decision to lease is much later in the year than our 4-year institutions.
Yeah, I know you're not as intimately involved with the 2-year schools like Vinny is, but from your perspective, what do you see as being some of the biggest differences?
Yeah, I think he touched on most of it, but yeah, absolutely. Like just the 4-year university, they've been accepted probably 7 months in advance, and so they absolutely know. For the most part, majority of them know their plans, and they know they're going to be at this university. And there's no knock against community college, but yeah, it's often a fail safe. If like this is our last, even if we don't decide to go to Iowa State or Iowa or Drake or UNI or whatever, we always know we can go here. And so and we see that in the leasing on the 4-year university, we fill up much faster than the 2-year university. Mm-hmm. So.
Do you think the housing expectations or how the 2-year students approach housing differently than the 4-year students? Besides the delay, are there different expectations? Either one of you?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much the same. Maybe not such an emphasis on luxury living in the 2-year community college, but certainly they want a nice place. They want a safe place. They want to be close to campus. I think that's pretty big. So, yeah.
I don't have this scripted in there, but I can speak to this. Again, our roots are in Ames, and when Brent bought the portfolio in Cedar Rapids, there was a certain amount, I'll just say it, maybe arrogance on our part, where we said, oh, we know student housing. I mean, how much different can it be? But we learned a lot, and a lot of to what you guys, just the delayed, we had expectations that, hey, lease up's going to be the same, but no, there's a lot of delay there. There's also tends to be a little bit more, at least back in the day, as we like to say, a lot more parent involvement with the 2-year school versus the 4-year school. And many times it's that freshman, whereas usually at a university, it's maybe a sophomore, a junior, because they've been in the dorm. So we learned a lot, and I think it obviously has made us better. Okay, I want to shift to talking about teamwork during the turn season, as well as just teamwork throughout the year. And I want to talk about the people side of things, because it is such a challenging process this season, and it is a challenge to the teams. Demands a lot from the property managers to the leasing teams, maintenance vendors, support teams, all those. What does teamwork look like during turn season when it's at its best, Spencer?
Yeah, I've said this many times. I sound like a broken record, but it starts with attitude.
Okay.
Just togetherness, knowing it's a stressful time, but working together with a smile, and just being able to get through it. That's truly what teamwork looks like. But again, there's a lot of meetings that people don't see of. We all need to be on the same page. And so, like you said, the manager needs to be on the same page with maintenance. Maintenance to be on the same page with the leasing team, because and same with vendors. There's, Vinny referenced it earlier, but there's so many different checkpoints that can change rapidly. And so just communication. But yeah, again, I just come back to it really boils down to the attitude and just preparation.
Vinny, I want to have you go first on this question, but what are some examples of some people that you've seen step up during turn season that maybe people don't see, but you see? And then Spencer will give you an opportunity. But yeah, what are some examples? Yeah,
and if you're hanging out near the trash compactor, you might see these people. But and I'll get into it a little bit, but as we deal with turn, we have so many people moving out, and there's so much trash left behind, furniture and couches and beds, and those 40-yard dumpsters get filled quick. And sometimes the trash company can't get there for 24 hours. And so when they empty that bin and they return it, you just see everybody come out and help, whether it's the leasing office, the maintenance crew. Sometimes our vendors will come help us just load those things up and pack them full so we can get the property cleaned up. So that's a great example of people come together, teamwork to get something done. Yep. Do you got an example?
Well, I'd actually give a shout out to Vinny. He's definitely has a servant heart, and if you see anyone out the trash compactor putting trash in, it's probably Vinny.
He's leading the charge.
He's leading the charge, yes. And he's sweating. And I think even a couple of years ago, Dave, our president of Haverchat Properties, him and I were just driving around in his truck, and just helped Joe, our maintenance guy at one of our properties, that there was so much stuff left over, and just put everything up in his truck. And Dave didn't have to do that. And so I just think it speaks highly of our leaders willing to just drive around and help wherever's needed, and get sweaty. And yeah.
So how do you keep morale up and energy up when the days get long and that pressure builds? What are some tips or techniques? Don't get any trade secrets away, but what are some things you guys have learned over the years to help keep that morale or energy up for your teams?
Yeah, I think it starts from up top. So, if Vinny and I can have positive attitudes and trickle that down to the manager, if the manager has a good attitude, the team's going to be affected by that. And I think just reminding them it's just a season, and it's a short season. Now, it's a long season as far as preparation, but the turn itself it's 2 weeks at max. And so just reminding them that we will get through this. 2 weeks from now, we'll look back and think, wow, all we did. And but yeah, it's just reminding them that it's a short season.
Yeah, caffeine and snacks go a long way.
I was waiting for that.
Yeah,
Really
they
was.
go a long way.
Man, everyone wants to know, what do we have in the break room?
Yeah.
What's in the refrigerator? What'd you guys bring in for food? Yeah,
Yeah.
so caffeine and sugar, snacks, all that stuff goes a long way.
Break time to eat a meal together and rest a little bit, and it goes a long way.
It does. Yeah. It does. What do you need from other departments within Havercamp or other leaders during this season?
I would say just stay out of our way. Let us operate. No, I mean a little bit, but at the same time, from other departments, it's probably space. If accounting needs something, but it's not urgent, hey, can it wait a couple days? Can it wait maybe even a week? And if not, we'd be happy to address it, but just a little space and realize things will be a little delayed and a little bit of grace. But I think we get plenty of that. Yeah.
Would you add anything to that?
No, I think it's spot on.
I mean, we talked about this earlier, how we get a lot of, short-term seasonal help, but we get men and women who are in different departments who will help out during turnover time, whether it be somebody from accounting or marketing, because they know there's a need. And especially, you talked about how important inspectors are. We get different team members from other departments stepping into those roles. That's really helpful too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So who are some maybe behind the scene contributors that help make Turn successful?
Yeah, I think, even the marketing department, all that they do as far as prepping for move-in folders, preparing the material, they design our t-shirts for Turn, get those ordered. So I think there's a lot. And then even accounting, as we do final account statements at the end.
Absolutely.
So that's a big job. And so you're processing a lot of final accounts. And so it really does take all of us. Yeah.
I was thinking about the final move out statements and getting, security deposits refunded. Accounting plays a big role behind the scenes during that time. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. So student turn season reveals a lot about leadership, preparation, communication, problem solving, all those things. In your opinion, Vinny, what does turn season reveal about a leader?
Turn season could make or break you. So I think it really reveals how well you prepared, and then even further how much more you prepared after preparing. So I think it also can make or break a team. Is that team, do they communicate well? Do they work well together? Is that team falling apart? Are they cursing each other out? Are they yelling at each other? It reveals a lot in that aspect.
Yeah. When you think about leadership qualities, what are some of the more important ones, Spencer? What would you say are some of the more important leadership qualities? I know you talked about adaptability, we talked about communication, but what are some other qualities?
Yeah. I think about structure being a really big one during turn. You have to be prepared and there's obviously the famous saying of failing to prepare is preparing to fail. And that very much comes in line with turn. You're going to be in a hard place if you didn't spend the time. So just discipline and preparation.
So I want to ask both of you, how has student housing in general, how has student housing made you better leaders?
Yeah, I think for me, just learning from my failures, and there's been a ton, especially during the turnover time. My first year, I renewed several people on move-out day. And thank God for Thad Brown, gave me a little talking to and said, hey, we do not do that, and here's why we don't do that. So I think just learning from the failures, also just being able to perform under pressure, keep the team motivated. Those are some of the things that I've learned.
How about for you?
Yeah, I think just preparing for the future is because of how much you have to prepare in student housing in the future. Me personally, it's made me a better leader of looking forward while still staying engaged in the now. And then just Vinny references too, but just decisions under pressure and just adaptability. So adaptability can be hard for me. And so it's definitely taught me that and made me better in that way.
Yeah, we're a little different, Spencer and I. So I tend to love turnover time. I get excited and energized, and it does quite the opposite.
Yeah, I do not like turn. I like to make sure things are in the right order. I like steadiness. I like perfection. So I don't like that. you know something's going to go wrong, and you don't know when it's going to happen.
But you know it's going
But
to
you
happen.
know it's going to happen. Yeah.
Over the years, the night before the move out, the next day I used to ask him, "How'd you sleep?" "Oh, I slept horrible. Thinking about it all night. I slept all night. I slept like a baby. I'm like a good sleeping baby, you know. Slept like a rock." So
That's what makes you guys a good team.
yeah, it's good balance.
Good balance. So we know at Havercamp, our purpose and passion is to create communities where people love to live, and during turn season as well as just throughout the year. But it really shows up very practically during this season through the details, the readiness, things we've already talked about. How, from your guys' perspective, does that creating communities where people love to live show up?
I'm going to start just first impression. From them coming into the office, how long did they have to wait? Was the staff pleasant? Were they excited that they were there? To, the first time they go unlock their door, if the key's not working, that's a strike. If they got to come back to the office, wait in line again, that's problematic. And Spencer referenced earlier, but if they walk in the unit and it's cold and it smells good and it's clean, it's all about that first impression.
I think too, it's because like I said, there's going to be issues. And so how do we respond to those issues? I think of a time that just a couple of years ago, we had a resident who moved in and we dropped the ball. Their flooring wasn't done in time. They moved in and they're rightfully so very frustrated. And one of our managers did a great job of fixing the problem. And that resident actually ended up applying for a job later with us and actually worked for us for 2 years.
Yes.
And it was a cool story of just her talking about, I was really frustrated at the time, but you guys did a great job of resolving it and fixing that problem. And in turn, I wanted to work for you guys.
Yeah.
So,
that's a great story right there. Great story. Love it. What do you hope that, again, people take away from hearing this podcast? What would just be some main takeaways you'd like them to come away with, Vinny?
I would say that our student housing teams, just how much we appreciate them, all the work and all the preparation and all the problem solving that they do. I think also just Havercamp Properties, we really care about our residents and we really care about the experience and we care about our site teams a ton. So, and that shows.
It does. Spencer, what do you want listeners to come away with?
Yeah, I think it's easy for the landlord. That term is often a negative definition, and there's rightfully so some of that. But like Vinny said, we truly do care about our residents. We truly care about our team. We want them to enjoy their stay with us, and we want to serve them. And there's times we mess up, but if we can turn that back around and show how much we care. And I think you see it, we haven't talked much about it, but in our maintenance, we have the best maintenance team. And the turnaround of them getting maintenance orders done is usually within 24 hours. And I think that's incredible and normally unheard of for someone to put a maintenance request in and within a day it's already fixed. I just want to give a shout out to our maintenance team on that too.
Something I heard both of you guys communicate there. These are my words, but yes, we are a property management company, but we're so much more than that. And we think more than just brick and mortar. We are thinking about the people, and we're thinking about, call it property experience, the experience for our residents as much as an experience for our own team members, that at the end of the day, this caring I heard mentioned a lot here in just the last few minutes. Definitely much more than just doing property management. We're also wanting to make sure everyone has a good experience. So as we begin to wrap up, is there anything you didn't say that you wish you had? Because now's your chance.
All right, well, I'm going to say it just because
the elephant in the room.
Yeah, the elephant in the room, right? Just because my business allegiance to Iowa State does not mean my personal allegiance is to Iowa State. Okay. So I had to rep, these things here they were actually created by Todd's grandma. She made them. And back when Todd was smart, he at a younger age liked the Hawkeyes, and I think it was you were moving out of your house,
yes,
and felt like you couldn't get rid of it because your grandma made them. So
right.
They are currently in my office, but they are inscripted with Todd's name on the bottom here.
Yeah, these were gifts to me from my grandmother, and you're right. It was during the moving to our current house. I just couldn't part with them. It just didn't feel right. But I knew I could entrust them to somebody who would deeply care for them. You're right. When I was younger, and some would say maybe even more foolish, there was a time period when, I bled the black and gold. But now it's definitely cardinal and gold. Yeah. Anyway, anything else you want to add to that, Spencer?
No, that's probably the most important one.
That's the most important thing you want to add. The whole podcast was about that. All right. Last chance. Anything else you want to add to the final thoughts?
I would love to give a shout out to our team and specifically my team members, Brooke and Morgan and Hannah, who's currently on maternity leave, who will return here shortly. And then also just our maintenance guys, Chad, Thad, and Joe. Just the incredible work that they put in, especially as we're preparing for turn. They're going to put in long hours. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be stressful. Just want to appreciate them.
Vinny.
Yeah, I definitely want to give a shout out to our Eastern Iowa teams. We talked about Matt and his team setting a record this year, which was awesome. And Tabitha and her team out there, just really appreciate all their hard work, all the thought and planning that goes into the process. And then also my Central Iowa team with Jake Bruxford and his newer team. Just good luck to them for your first turn for most of you. You guys are going to do great. And
All right. Well, again, Vinny, Spencer, I want to thank you for sharing your perspective and your stories and helping us better understand all the work and preparation that goes behind the student housing turn and just managing student properties. That leadership is so key. I also appreciate the way you serve your team and also the way that you serve our residents. We talked about how much you guys do care, and then that does definitely spill out into the rest of the team members. So thank you for being individuals who care and then support one another, and you help bring our purpose and passion to life. So just again, want to say thank you. And to our listeners, I want to say thank you for joining us today on Haverchat, a leadership podcast. We hope that today's conversation gives you just a little bit deeper appreciation of all the people behind the student housing portfolio, the communities, and better understand what it takes to prepare for success during a very challenging, demanding season within property management. So be sure to follow Haverchat, our leadership podcast, for more conversations with leaders who are making a difference each and every day. So until next time, lead with purpose.